great to be here today with you, Michael, ahead of the announcement of the international squad for the upcoming games. And one of the games is obviously against our old rival Spain, and it's in Mallorca, which has a lot of memories for me. But I'm really impressed with the squad you've announced, and there's so many great young players coming through. Am I getting too ambitious here, or is there truth in that?
No, I think we have demonstrated that. It's still very early on in the development of these young players, and maybe because of where we are as a squad, they've maybe got their opportunity a little bit earlier than maybe otherwise would have been the case. So I think the thing that I've found with this group of players is there's a real togetherness in the squad. You know, Gerry, you're part of good squads, and that togetherness is a huge part of any Northern Ireland squad. And with this group of players, I feel it's instantly there. A lot of them know each other from a young age, and it's never easy going and playing international football in June. Players have had a long season, but I can already tell that the players are excited about the trip. It was one of the reasons we took the game. You have to measure yourself against the best teams, and if you're an international player and you're not looking forward to going away and playing Spain, obviously you've got something missing in your armoury. So for me, I'm excited about them, but I'm also I want them to keep progressing, and I think there's two parts to that, which is obviously exposure to international football, and also that the trajectory of their club career continues to go up and they can play at as high a level as possible, as regularly as possible.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm looking at the squad and I'm looking how young they are. I mean, some of these lads, I wasn't even playing international football. Actually, I was probably still playing Gaelic football. Yeah. So it was like, I'm looking at the development, and there's Conor Bradley obviously stands out, and Trey Hume, who's been very impressive this season for Sunderland, very versatile, can play on either side. And I always said when I started off, and I remember I was on the end of a lot of defeats in my early part of my career with Jimmy Nicholl, and who was making his early career as well. We were playing the same time, David McCreary, Billy Hamilton. It took us at least 10, maybe 12 international matches to find out what it was all about, and that was probably over a 2-3 year period. Yeah. So it does take time.
Yeah, it does. And look, I think that when you've got 10 games a year as we have, unless you have a qualification situation, what you're trying to get is a consistency in your squad. And unfortunately, in the qualification for Germany, we never got that. We had so many injuries, and unfortunately injuries to key players who we hoped would have given us that added little bit of experience. But what it meant was then that we had to push some of the younger players through. So we were asking a lot of them in those situations. But I think you always learn at international level, because for a lot of our players it may be a step up, and you have to mentally feel that you're able to do that, to be able to deal with when you go and play against maybe the bigger nations, but also the expectation when we play here at home, because the fans here are fantastic, the backing they get, but they want to see a team that'll play on the front foot. And we had some, narrow defeats where I think, we possibly looked a little bit young and inexperienced. We looked a little bit disjointed at times. But, I think in the last 3 to 4 games, the signs have been positive, and we just got to continue to work with the players. But you're right. I think, everyone looks at when you lose games and as a negative, but in terms of the development of the players, it is important, because a lot of our players, if we look back to 2016, the players who came into the international team at that time, the likes of Paddy McNair, Stuart Dallas, they had a period where they qualified, they played in World Cup playoffs, they played in Euro playoffs. So they had a long period of playing massive games and threatening for qualification or qualifying. Whereas obviously Stephen Davises and the Johnny Evans and Aaron Hughes had to play through a lot darker days at times, where the results were more difficult. It was more difficult for them to get into a consistent run of form. So yeah, I think when I look at the where the development of the squad is, we just got to continue and try and add as many positive experiences as we go forward.
Yeah, I have to agree with you on a lot of that, because I'm thinking back to when I was actually qualifying for the World Cup in 1982. Mal Donaghy was at Luton, I was at Watford. We were going for promotion, both of us. We were first and second in the league, and that was like paramount at the time. But then when you're called up for the international team, you've got to go and do your job for that, and that was important to try and qualify for a World Cup. You have Shea Charles, who is in the final now with Southampton against Leeds. All of that must be great for the player who's looking at two avenues for success to try and take it on to another level. How good is that for the players in the squad?
Well, I think where we are as a group at the minute, I look back, first of all, I think we had 6 or 7 players that played in the Premier League in Euro 2016. At this minute in time, we've got 2. Connor has obviously made the breakthrough at Liverpool, and Johnny has, obviously had the experience he's had at Manchester United this year and played, a lot more than maybe he envisaged and a lot more than possibly they did when he signed. But I think he's showing still that he's a quality player and brings a lot to the team. So to get as many players into the next level of football for the lads at Bolton, Dion and Owen, it was difficult for them. Obviously Kieran Brown's at Oxford, so Kieran will now step back into the Championship. He's been there before with Cardiff. And obviously with Shea, this is Shea's first season in senior football. People maybe forget that. When I played him last March, he hadn't had a single minute of first team football. But I just felt he was good enough to deal with international football. I think he's demonstrated that. He's been a real bright spark. I think, when Stephen was unavailable to us, I think we were always looking at that role and saying, well, who will fulfil that role in the team? And the signs are that Shea has everything needed to do that. It's still very young in his career, but certainly the next step for him, is to get to the Premier League with Southampton and obviously establish himself in the Premier League. And he'll be an outstanding player for us. I've watched recently, Isaac Price playing in Belgium. He's played a lot of first team football for a young player in a difficult season for his club, Standard Liège. But all of these experiences help them and harden them as they come into international football. Mm-hmm. And as you mentioned earlier with Trey, his route's slightly different. He's probably more of a Stuart Dallas kind of route coming through the Irish League. But I've watched Trey rather consistently over the last sort of 2 seasons. And you're right, his versatility, but his level of performance at a big club where the expectation is high, again helps him when he comes to play on the international stage.
I have a lot of friends, Sunderland supporters, and they're telling me he's their best player. Yeah. And he's playing consistently every week, which is encouraging for yourself and obviously the squad. It's great to have some senior players still around who can pass on information and help these young players develop.
I think it is. It's also good to have players that have been around successful times, because it helps, that time that they spend together. International football is, the players spend 5 times a year. They come together for 9-10 days. There is downtime in that. It's different from when international football, when we played, it was more of a 3-day. You turned up on a Sunday, you played on a Wednesday, you're back at your club. Now they're with us for 9 days. So I think having those kind of players around is invaluable. Obviously we've brought, Johnny and Corey are both in this squad, so they will add a lot to that. It's great to have Corey back after, the injury that he had. He's always one of those players that I always, turn to in the bigger games in particular, because I knew, he would never let us down in the big stage. What we've tended, unfortunately, with the players that we've lost, we don't automatically have players to step into that situation. It's probably in that midsection, maybe about 24 to 28. Is where we're probably lacking in players and in quality a little bit. So, as I say, that gives these younger players the opportunity.
What do you expect when you go to Mallorca? It's a wee place I know quite well. So what do you expect?
Well, look, I've looked a lot at the Spanish team, and it's a different, when they had their period of success, the squad was essentially made up of Barcelona and Real Madrid players. Mm-hmm. And they were 2 clubs that were obviously right at the top of European football. So they had a huge, resource of players and world-class players in every position. This is a younger squad, and I think the players are more spread out amongst the clubs in Spain as well. We have some players that will play for Sociedad, some at Bilbao as well. You know, not just Real Madrid and Barcelona, obviously Atletico Madrid. So and some overseas as well. But you know, they have good energy in their team, and they have a lot of quality. And what, you know, when you look at the Spanish team, there's some very, very young players. Like Gavi has come in and played at the age of 17. I think they have a young kid that's played at 16 in the senior international team. So they're breeding young players as well. And there seems to be that kind of confidence across even the bigger nations to put younger players in now. So it'll be a tough game. It'll be warm. Obviously, I think there'll be a big, you know, the game being in Mallorca will give them, you know, the people on the island a huge chance to go and support the national team as well. So yeah, look, it's as I said earlier, these are games you've got to look forward to, and the players have to embrace the challenge of it.
So I know what you're saying, but I mean, there's a lot of the Spanish players are playing in England at Manchester City, and you know, Rodri. I mean, they've got players all over the world, but they've got a huge base to choose from, unlike ourselves. But you should have some good support, because you know, Mallorca is very popular with the British people being over there, and you'll have a lot of Northern Ireland fans. I know a lot of the supporters clubs are going over to follow you and support you, and it's an excuse to get away and get a bit of sunshine as well. So I hope you enjoy your time at Mallorca. The last time we played, the only time we played there, we actually managed to score the draw, which I think you'd be happy with.
Well, given your history there, obviously, and the past of the results that we've had in the past, if we can get somewhere near them, we'll obviously have a good trip.
I blame Jimmy Quinn. He had the header off the crossbar in the last 3 minutes.
In the last 3 minutes, yeah, I remember it.
We could have won the match. But listen, I wish you well, Michael, and good luck and enjoy yourself.
Cheers, Gerry.